Well, hello, PPM community. Scott with PPM Works. Another great episode today for you in our series of working with OnePlan for your project and portfolio management. Today, I'm going to talk about the resource pool, how you might take your resource pool up a level, integrating it with another one of your line of business applications, such as your HR system. It's a pretty brief agenda for today. We're going to cover a few basic intro slides. Most of the content will be jumping right in and showing you how to work with your resource pool. As always, if you have questions, go ahead and let us know in the chat or contact us with some of the follow-up afterwards. We're happy to get back to you. So we have a number, this is just one in a number of upcoming webcasts we have. Lots of helpful topics. You can see the schedule here going through the next few months. So we hope you continue to join us and benefit from these webcasts. And a reminder, in case you miss anything, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/c/ppmworks. This and all those other webcasts will be posted for your benefit. And if you're an organization that's either already using Microsoft Project, already using OnePlan, maybe not using the Power Platform, etc., we're happy to do a free workshop with you. We'll kind of get to hear some of your more challenging areas, and we'll propose workshop type solutions, usually between 1 and 4 hours, so you can kind of start to see the potential for benefit using really this platform that we've grown to love for project and portfolio management, being Microsoft Project, Power Platform, and OnePlan. And with that, I'll go ahead and jump into the content. So to set this up, in your organization, you may have a resource pool in OnePlan like this. The great thing about bringing users or resources into your pool is that from Active Directory, OnePlan is going to get their profile photo, their name, their email, but it really kind of stops at that point. So a lot of organizations want to know, how do we get more of a rich resource pool? And I'm just going to show you two simple examples here. Obviously, more elaborate resource pools, we've built in 30, 40 different fields. In this case, for this demonstration, we're just going to bring in two fields, one called primary skill, which is just a text field, and the other one is location. And location is actually a choice field here. So to bring in data, you would connect to, a lot of times, your HR system. We do a lot of integrations, for example, with Workday. But for the sake of this demonstration, I've prepared my resource data here in just a simple Excel file. So in my Excel file, I have the resource name, which you really don't need. We're going to use the email as the key. And then what my goal is to populate these two columns here, populate everyone's primary skill and location. And so you might be thinking, well, gosh, that's going to be a lot of programming. I got to build an API. I got to do all this stuff. And the answer is, it's real simple. And this is where we turn to Microsoft's Power Platform. Using Power Automate, we're able to do a real easy integration with our resource pool. So what does that look like? Let's go over now to Power Automate. So I'm here within Power Apps. And what I'm going to do is indicate I'd like to create a new cloud flow. And this is going to be an instant cloud flow, just meaning I'm going to run this manually for now. Of course, in your organization, this might be scheduled, it might be triggered by some event. And this is going to be called Update Resource Pool. And we'll just, like I said, manually trigger this for the purpose of this demonstration. You could actually change this later. It's great. All right, so I have my new Power Automate ready. Just save it to make sure it saves okay. Okay, we're going to do one trigger. So what are we going to do as a first step? First step we're going to need to do is access our content. So access our resource data, and that's an Excel file. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to hit New Step. I'm going to go to this Excel Business Connector, and I want to do this option where I read list rows present in a table. Okay. So I've already located my Excel file here in just a SharePoint site. I put it at the bottom here. Go. It's in a document library there. File name is called external resource data, and the actual table in that Excel file is called resource pool. So what we'll do is maybe name this just to make it easier for later to reference it, and we'll just call this external resource data. And the great thing about Power Automate is that as you work, you can save and kind of test things. So let's save it here. Oh, and one other little tip: when you're reading Excel, again, you may not be reading Excel for this exercise in your environment. I always like to set this date format at the bottom, particularly if you work with date fields, you'll forget to do this, and it's required. So set that, we save it, and we go ahead and test it. So we'll just run this manually, test it. All right, so it's running now. It shouldn't take long, 2 seconds. If I click into this, I actually see here that it was able to grab my data. So I see that data that I showed you a moment ago in Excel is now coming into my Power Automate. Well, we're ready to move on now. So we have our resource data, and what we want to do is iterate through each row in that table. So the step we're going to add for this is called a for each. Just type for each. That's under control. I'm sorry, apply to each. Apply to each is what it is. So I have apply to each step, and because I want to apply to each row, I grab the list of items here from my Excel table. So this list of items here in the selection is going to be each row here. And again, we're just going to rename this to each row to make it easy to reference. Again, I can test, but let's actually go on and put another action in here before we start testing. So what I want to do now for each row in my Excel file is I want to get the resource from OnePlan. So I'm going to hit add action here. And there's a couple of things you can do here. OnePlan actually has their own built-in Power Automate connectors, but I'm going to use the more general one that pretty much anyone who's developed in Power Automate has probably used before, the HTTP connector. Now notice when you choose HTTP and select it here, it does say premium, so there are certain license requirements to run this connector. This is going to allow you to do standard HTTP puts, gets, etc. So the method we're going to use to get our resource data is going to be a get. And now we need a URL to pull that resource in. And how are we going to find this? So toggling over a screen here, if you look at this URL, which is your normal OnePlan URL, my.oneplan.ai, if you put /API help, this is going to give you a large help reference to all the different APIs. So if we scroll down this through, there's ones for visual status reports, my work, events, timesheet costs, enterprise teams, audit, blah, 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 all the way down to where we get to finally resources. There they are. And what we want to do is get a resource. So we see right here that I'm able to get resources with this API, which is API/resources, and then we can get them actually by email. So that's going to be helpful. So what I'm going to do is copy beginning part of my URL up here, go back to my environment. I'll put that in here. Go back again and get the rest of this string that I need to put in. See, to get resources, it looks like this, my.oneplan.ai/API/resources, !email equals. So here I need to put in a parameter to get my OnePlan resource. That parameter is actually coming from my row of data. It actually has email right here already in the dynamic content. So I'm able to put my email that I got from up here. You could also have typed this in, each item's !email. All right, so I'm ready to get it, but I need to do one more thing. I need to identify in this HTTP how I'm going to authenticate. So I'm going to use what's called basic authentication. And the way you set this up, going back to OnePlan here, is that if you go over to the OnePlan configuration, which I have open here, and you go to your integrations area, which is going to be right here, you can actually create what are called keys. So these allow you to access OnePlan. So what you would do is do add key. You would put a key name like resource pool integration. Oh, sorry. I'm going to put sample key here. Sample key and add. And notice how it will add it here. Right there. And it'll give you the key. So let's just take this one. So it's called sample key. And then I put the name here. And what I'm going to do is find my automate sample key. I'll go ahead and put that in right there. So that is really it in terms of an API, really your first API if you ever want to work with OnePlan APIs. The URL goes here, the method is selected, the key goes here under basic authentication. We're ready to try this out. So let's save this. So what I should expect to happen here as I run through this is that every row of my Excel table, let me show you that again so you remember what that looks like. This is my Excel table, so it's going to run through each row here, and it's going to use the email to find that resource in OnePlan. So let's go ahead and test this. So it read the Excel file in 1 second. It's going through those 10 rows, and it looks like about a second each. Well, maybe a little longer here. And it finished. So let's see what it did. Oh, perfect. It iterated 11 times. So on this first pass, it put in Adele's email here, and you see in this response that it got all of Adele's information. So the API worked in terms of querying for Adele, and it shows you in the body here what came back. Now, notice the first thing in the body that came back is something called user ID. This is going to be something we're about to use because when we want to update Adele's record in OnePlan, we need to give Power Automate her user ID to do that. Let's go back and continue editing our Power Automate. All right, so this one, maybe we just name this to make it easier. We'll call this get resource. All right. Now we're ready to update this resource. So what I'm going to do, instead of creating a new HTTP command, I'm just going to actually copy this to my clipboard. That way I can easily make a copy of it. And this one we'll rename because this one is going to be our update resource. Okay, so it copied everything from the one above, but we need to go to our API reference, which is going to be here. Now, instead of getting a resource, we want to find the one to update a resource, which we're going to find right here. So notice the syntax is pretty similar. It's going to, again, start with API, and it's going to have resources, and then there's going to be a slash, and then the resources ID, okay? And then we notice with a post, it's a little bit different than a get. With a post, a lot of times you're going to have a body, which shows you down here, it's the body, with some information that you're essentially, in this case, sending to OnePlan. So let's start with the URL. So we need to do API/resources and then the ID. Okay. So what we want to do is API/resources. So we're going to get rid of all this. And now we put a slash, and then we want the ID. Where does the ID come from? It comes from this step right before. So in our expression, I'm going to type first because we want really the first item in that came back from that get resources. We want the body of that. Body's name is get resource. And then what field do we want in there? I don't know if you remember this. When I looked at it, it was called user ID. So what this is doing is from this, it's getting the first record and putting the user ID right here. So now we want to change this as well to a post. So gets the user ID. Now it posts against that user ID. Our key is still in here, right? But we do need to fill out this body. So the easiest thing to do here is to go back to that API reference and just copy the body they give you here. Paste that in. So this is just a bunch of samples. What we really care about in this whole sample is this section called fields. I'll actually delete everything until we get to fields. And we see that it's basically some pairs of values, the field name and then the value. So looking at my OnePlan, go back here, I see the field name. I'm going to update first as primary skill. Let's try that. Okay. And the next one I want to update is called location. So what I'm going to do for primary skill is also put it in quotes. Same thing with location, quotes. Okay. And let's go ahead and what do we want to put as the primary skill? The neat thing about that, it's going to be in our dynamic contact here that we get from our Excel file. So I'm going to just click the primary skill. I'm going to click the location. All right. So that is as simple as it gets if you're working particularly with some text fields. So primary skill. Now remember, location is not a text field. So I'm just using this as an illustration. I already know that I'm gonna have to do more with that location because it's a choice field, but this will just illustrate that point. So I've set my two fields now. I have my get resource, I have my update resource. Let's go ahead and save this and test it. See how this goes. It's not uncommon that I have a bug in my code and need to fix something, but so far it looks like it's running pretty nicely. Kind of interesting that I ran even quicker this time. So you see there's kind of a range in timing. So come back to my resource pool. These fields are empty, so I'm going to hit the refresh and hope that I have some more data now. So I'll hit the refresh here. All right, that's exactly what I expected. So primary skill is a text field, and you see that just simply putting the text in there worked. All these got updated. What did not work is my location, because location is what's in OnePlan called a choice field. So this gets a little more complex. It would be nice, maybe one day the API for OnePlan will just take that text value and convert it to an ID and set it. That would save us so much time in building these integrations. But as of today, we have to do a little more work. To show you that, if I come out to my configuration of OnePlan and I go to fields, and I go to resource fields and I go to the location field, edit it, I do see that it has choices, okay? And if I click on those choices, I see the three choices here, Boston, Dallas, San Francisco we have. I also see the ability to add another column here, which is my ID column. So it happens to be when you're using the APIs with OnePlan and you're setting choice fields, instead of setting the value here, you have to set the global unique identifier, the GUID. A little more work. So how are we going to do that in Power Automate? Well, a couple different methods for this. You could, of course, hard code it maybe in your source data. What we're going to do is create something called an array in OnePlan. And then we're going to filter that array to get to convert our text value into the GUID. So going back to the Power Automate, we'll edit it now. And what we're going to do is create a variable up here. And our variable is going to be called var location. Let's rename this. And this type of variable is going to be something called an array, the list of items essentially. And to save you a little bit of time here, I created this in advance, and I'll go ahead and just copy and paste, and then I'll talk about what's in here. So this is the syntax format for initializing your own array. So I have the square brackets on the outside, indicating there's going to be a number of values. Each row, if you will, or value inside this JSON array is going to be the squiggly brace. Then we have pairs. So in each one of these, I have a value, first one being Boston, and then the ID being the GUID that I copied from the screen before I showed in configuration. So I've built basically an array with my 3 values and the 3 IDs for each of those values. Okay. So what I need to do now down here in my, every time I go through each row is I have to filter that array. So let's call this filter. So which array do I want to filter? This location. So let's just call this filter location. Okay. So when we're filtering this, we want to filter by the item named value. And we want it to equal from our Excel the value of the location. So what this filter is going to do, it's going to come through here. It's going to have a value like San Francisco. It's going to pull up this array that we defined above. It's going to filter to just the one record in this array that matches San Francisco. Then below here, instead of trying to stick in the location as text, which you already know doesn't work, instead we're going to grab the first record in our body of filter location. And for that first record, the actual value we're going to put in here is called ID of that location. So this is basically the syntax you would use whether you're just putting a straight string in, or in this case, you want to put in the ID of a choice field. And that's it. So we hit save here. And we hit test. Good news, it's taking a little bit longer here. And there it is. So if you want to see the details of this, you can actually come in and see from my first row. What I wanted to do is here's all the values from my array, and it filtered it down to Boston. I go to my next row, filtered it down to San Francisco. Next one, filtered it down to San Francisco again, Boston, Dallas. Let's see, this one was Dallas. So, and you see then when it's updating the record, it's passing in the GUID of that location instead of the text. So in our conclusion, we go back to our resource pool, refresh one more time, and voila, I now have updated 2 fields, both a text field and a choice field in my resource pool. I'm just pulling that data in from Excel as a use case, but it very well could have been connecting with Workday, etc. So as I mentioned at the onset, any questions, go ahead and scan here for our LinkedIn connection. You may also email us info@ppmworks.com.
Excellent. Well, we're excited for our Tuesday topics that are coming up here. You can see the ones that are coming up here in March, and we have plenty others for the rest of the 2024 year. So make sure you join in. You can see there's plenty that are here and available for us. And then, you guys are why we do this. So thanks again for tuning in and being a part of our PPM Works community. The more that we hear back from you, the more that we can tailor our content. We appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to watch, to like, to share, as well as to comment and subscribe with us. So your support not only means that we're doing the right thing, but it also can help us extend our work management solutions into areas that you're looking. So we're thrilled that you're along with us on this journey. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you comment, let us know what you liked, and also some other future content that we can provide for you. Any helpful work management idea or topic that's out there, hopefully we have on our list already for 2024, but if we don't, make sure you give us a little feedback, let us know. Your engagement, and feedback is what keeps us going and keeps us driving these different webcasts. Our team loves hearing back from you, so make sure you drop us a note, say hello, and also, let us know how we're doing. Together, we're building an amazing work management community. So let's keep that up. Let's strive to keep giving feedback back and forth, and so we can bring you even more fantastic content in the future. We're going to see you next Tuesday. We'll be back here. So we want to thank you for being part of our PPM Works community. And we really want to welcome you back next Tuesday. And thank you very much for being here today. And we wish you a very fantastic day.